Cruz Reynoso was born in 1931 during the Great Depression to a family of migrant workers in Brea, California. He was one of 11 children.
My parents came from the town of Jalos Totitlán in the state of Jalisco in Mexico. They came north to Arizona, where my dad started working with the railroads. They lived in boxcars, and slowly they moved their way to California. Reaching California, my dad quit the railroads, and my dad and my mom then settled in California, where my dad started working as a farm worker. Well, I think what I learned from my father was the dignity of work and the worth of work. He was a farm worker most of his life, not all his life, most of his life. But he never thought of himself as, quote, just a farm worker. He viewed his work with dignity and being important. And indeed, he viewed that he was helping feed the people of this state, this country, and the world.
Cruz experienced prejudice early in his life when he is turned away at his grammar school and is sent to a segregated school.
It made us feel like second-class citizens because we had tried to enroll in a really nice-looking school, and we were sent to a school that, to us, didn't look very nice. You know, we had a basketball court, but it was on dirt. You know, the ball would bounce all over the place. But there was a problem, and the problem, as I saw it, was that children do sort of what's expected from them. And so of the kids in my class in the segregated school, I was the only boy to finish high school.
Later in high school, Cruz confronts the school superintendent on the issue of segregation.
When I was a little boy, and later also, I had what I called my justice bone. When I saw something that was really unjust, I felt compelled to do something about it, to have my justice bone not hurt, you know. And so segregation became for me one of those things that made me hurt. So when I was in high school, I went to see the superintendent. And I said, you know, I don't really think that segregation is the best way to teach children. Later I learned that he actually agreed with me. But at that time he said to me, well, Cruz, he says, if people in the barrios agree with you, he says, maybe a committee of adults should come see me. At that meeting, the auditorium was crowded with Latino and Anglo families, about half Anglo, half Latino. When they announced that they were going to desegregate, the audience burst into applause. And I remember thinking, you know, on this occasion, the citizens of La Habra were ahead of the vote of the elected officials because they were ready.
Cruz graduates from high school and is awarded a scholarship to Pomona College, and after graduation, joins the Army.
And I wanted to go into the military to have the GI Bill when I got out to help me with my education.
In 1958, Cruz graduates law school at UC Berkeley, where he is the only Hispanic in the graduating class.
Nowadays, they ask me, did you belong to the La Raza Student Association at Berkeley when you were there? And I tell them, well, if I had, I would have been president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. I was the only one.
After graduation, Cruz moves to El Centro, a small agricultural community near the border in Imperial County, and he starts his practice.
I had always wanted to be a small-town lawyer. Nowadays, so many want to go with a big firm and all that. I wanted to be a small-town lawyer. But I was sure that I'd be the only Chicano lawyer, too. And in fact, I was the first Chicano lawyer to go down to Imperial County.
There he volunteers at the Community Service Organization, a grassroots organization that conducted voter registration drives, protests police brutality, fought for farm workers' rights, and brought evening citizenship classes to neighborhood schools.
It's the best community organization I've ever belonged to. Cesar Chavez was our staff person at that time.
While in Imperial County, he marries and starts his family. But in later years, he will lose his wife to cancer. In 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson introduced the legislation for the War on Poverty. And in 1966, California Rural Legal Association, CRLA, opens its doors as one of the nation's original War on Poverty programs. It was made up of lawyers dedicated to protecting farm workers' rights and defending the poor. And in 1969, Cruz is named its director. In the following years, the CRLA is winning farm workers' cases and changing unjust laws and practices.
Some cases we were winning very easily. I would tell our lawyers, I think we're great lawyers, but we're not winning many of these cases because we're great lawyers. We're winning them because the legal conclusion is so obvious. It just hadn't been followed before because poor people couldn't get into court or couldn't get into the appellate court.
California Governor Ronald Reagan sides with the farm owners and attempts to veto CRLA funding.
We had brought a case against local school districts because they had closed down the schools because the growers needed more workers at that time. And so we were now, according to Reagan, destroying agriculture.
The fight lasted 3 years, but in the end, CRLA prevailed.
So if we had been vetoed, it not only would have destroyed our program, but probably would have weakened legal service throughout the country.
Cruz Reynoso's legal civil rights reputation was getting attention, and he was receiving phone calls from law schools all over the country. In 1972, Cruz Reynoso is recruited by the University of New Mexico and becomes one of the first Latino law professors in the nation. After teaching for 4 years, Governor Jerry Brown offers Reynoso a seat on the California Court of Appeals. Reynoso accepts and spends the next 6 years there. In 1982, Governor Brown appoints Justice Reynoso to the California Supreme Court. He becomes the first Hispanic to achieve that honor. Several of the court's rulings favored rights of employees, consumers, and the poor. Justice Reynoso was largely responsible for a law to provide an interpreter for the accused.
And I had the experience of representing people that did not speak English, most of them Spanish-speaking. So I would be in trial, I'd be trying to listen to the witness, and my client was here leaning over saying, ¿Qué dijo? ¿Qué dijo? ¿Qué dijo? What did he say? What did he say? What did he say? Because he needs to know what's going on too, to see whether his story is different than the witness, right? So I knew, one, how difficult it was for me, but two, more importantly, that the client didn't know what was going on. And due process has always said, due process being a concept of fairness, has always said that an accused needs to know what's going on.
But after 5 years, Republicans accused the California Supreme Court on being soft on crime and launched a successful political campaign to replace 3 justices, including Justice Reynoso.
I never took it personally. I knew it was just a political campaign, and in political campaigns, many falsehoods, in fact, very often, they're based on falsehoods. So I was even reluctant to appoint a committee to support me.
Justice Reynoso returns to practicing law and starts teaching at the law school of UCLA. In 2000, President Bill Clinton honored Cruz Reynoso with a Presidential Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor, for his lifelong devotion to public service.
Some told him to put aside his dreams of college, saying bluntly, they will never let you in. But with faith in himself and the values of our country, Cruz Reynoso went on to college and to law school, but never forgot his roots.
When I became a lawyer, I became a lawyer representing poor people, to represent people in trouble. I never expected any reward from society. That I've been able to be appointed to be a judge, that I've been able to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and all those honors are all nice things, but I really never expected them.
Today, at 83, he continues to teach law at UC Davis Law School and also continues his volunteer work in many community organizations.
Cruz Reynoso is a civil rights icon. He's a teacher, he's committed to the students, and he's a role model for the students. And he's also the most humblest, decent person you could ever want to meet. We're lucky to have him at UC Davis, and I think he's transformed the law school in important ways.
I still remember when Justice Reynoso came to speak at Volt, the law school at UC Berkeley, when I was a student there. He inspired all of us with his vision of justice for all, that justice should be the same in substance and availability to all without regard to economic status. And since then, I've had the wonderful opportunity to see how Justice Reynoso moves and inspires generations of other law students.
Professor Reynoso has been a trailblazer, and there's this phrase where it says, you stand on the shoulders of giants, and he is truly the giant on which not only we stand on his shoulders, but he has been there in a very supportive, very inspirational way, and that has been, I think, very empowering for me as a Chicana lawyer.
Professor Reynoso currently resides in Davis, California. He is married to Elaine and enjoys family.
One of the things that I really appreciate about my father is his ability to use his justice bone, he calls it, to see what's correct in the world, to see what's right, and to go after that goal. Dad, I just like to say we really appreciate you teaching our family that, and we really are grateful for all the time you spent with us to educate us and teach us in those ways.
One of the things I learned from my father growing up was that there was grace in whatever you did, that if you did it with quality and with ethics and you did it to your best, that there was as much grace in being a farmer or a rancher or a lawyer or the President of the United States. Whatever you did was worthwhile if you did it well and with passion. Dad, I love you.
Dad, thank you for the example that you've set for me and for my family, and teaching us to always follow our passion and to do what we believe is right, despite what the costs may be. Thank you.
Grandfather, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the example you've set for us by making things better for everyone. If I could do something like you've done to help things better, I'd be so happy. Tito, I love you.
Hi, love Tito! I love you super much!
Justice and Professor Cruz Reynoso has made a tremendous difference in the lives of Latinos. His mission in life has always been to protect those who are most vulnerable. He's been a trailblazer, always fighting for justice, fighting for respect, changing lives, and giving new hope.
I've really devoted my efforts to what nowadays is called social justice, and that means real justice, not just legal justice. So are we doing what we should do in terms of medical attention to all of our people? Are we doing what we should do in terms of educating our young people? Are we doing everything that we need to do in terms of making sure that the laws truly represent the interests of the people? Do we have real justice for all the people in this state and this country and this world? And that's really what I've devoted my life to.
On behalf of the Board of Directors and the staff of the United States Leadership Institute and the 32nd Annual United States Hispanic Leadership Conference, we salute you.